Hello guys, welcome back. In this lecture, we will work on jQuery AJAX with Rails 7. So first of all, I want to tell you that I created a demo application for this and I will show you the AJAX example through this application only. You can see the repository of the project on my screen and I will also send the repository link into the description of the lecture and you can clone the repository at your local system. If you wish, you can pause the lecture and go to the description of the lecture and set up the project at your system first. You can follow the instruction at the readme of the repository. So if you scroll down to the project repository, you can see that here is the readme that I set up. And here I provided the instructions to set up this repository on any local system. You just need to make sure that you have Ruby 3.0 install and Rails 7.0 install on your system. Or if you don't want to set up any additional project, you can also try this lecture at your end by any of your existing application as well, because the objective of this lecture is to show you how the Ajax work with Rails 7, not to how to show set up a Rails application on the system. Okay, now let me explain a bit about this project. So here in this application, I have a single model name as book, and that book model contains four attributes like name, price, author, and category attributes. Now let me show you that application into the project directory or into the Sublime. So here you can see that I have this book model. Okay, in this book model I have some validations for name and price, author, and category. Okay, and if you wish, I can show you the schema.rb as well, and into the schema.rb you can see that I have a table books and its fields are name, price, author, category, and created it and updated it. Okay, and I also have a controller for this books model, that is a books controller, and it has only one index section there, and with this that is rendering all the books into the system. Okay, and now let me show you the index template for this book. So here you can see that I have this books table on my books index.html.erb. Okay, and in this lecture, we will write an Ajax for deleting books in bulk by selecting books using checkboxes. Okay, so first let's start the Rails server and run the application in the browser. So here you can switch to the terminal and start the Rails server. And once your Rails server is start, you can switch to the browser, and in the browser open a new tab and run the application at localhost colon 3000. Okay, and when you open you can see that these are the books in the database that is working right now. So here you can see I have total 7 books into my database. Okay, and what we will do in this lecture, that we will add the check boxes to each book row in the books table. Here you can see that this is the first row, second row, third row, and so on, and we will add a checkbox here. And once user select the check boxes, we will allow them to delete the books or selected books using some Ajax. Okay, so first what we need to do here, we need to add a checkbox in each book table row. Okay, so let's add the checkbox first. So what we need to do, we need to switch to the index template, or sorry, index section of the books controller, and here you can see the index html.erb. So first add an empty ts tag here. Okay, and then we need to add our checkbox here. Okay, so how we can add checkbox, so let's add another td here, and into this td we need to add the checkbox. So we can use the bootstrap checkbox. So let's say div class form check. Okay, and into this div we need to define our checkbox and label for that checkbox. Okay, so first add an input field, input type checkbox. Okay, and then we need to add some class here. Class, we can add class like, let's say, form check input, form check input. And we also need to add an additional class here, because we will use that additional class to perform some event on these checkboxes. Okay, so what additional class we can provide? Book select check, for example. Okay, book select check. Now we need to provide a check, sorry, id here. Okay, so you can provide an id here, and id must be like, let's say, checkbox, or you can have, let's say, checkbox book. Okay, and now we need to provide an empty label here. Okay, so provide a label here in this label tag, and in this label tag first we need to add the class, that is form check label, form check label. Okay, and we can add an attribute that is for this label check is, or this label is for, let's say, checkbox book. Okay, so just to save this and switch to the browser to see that whether this checkbox is appearing into our books table or not. So switch to the browser and refresh the page. Here you can see that we have the checkbox. So here you can see what we can do. We can select the checkboxes here. Okay, now as the next thing, what we need to do, that we need to make some changes into our checkbox implementation first. Okay, because here you can notice that we are displaying the checkboxes into the loop. Okay, here is the loop that is iterating all the books into the database. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to make these checkboxes id, because each element in the DOM must have a unique id. So we can provide some unique id to each checkbox in the loop. And what we can do here, so here you can see that we provided this checkbox book. So just select this and remove it. And what we can provide here, let's say book underscore and then book.id. Okay, book.id. And now again switch to the browser and refresh your browser, and here you can see this unique id for each checkbox. So here you can inspect the element, and here you can see book 4, this is the book with id 4. And you can check for the another checkbox as well, and here you can see that book 5, this is the book with id 5. And for some other book row, you can see that this is the book 6, that means the book with id 6. Okay, now one more change we need to do in the checkbox is that we need to set the data attribute into our checkbox. Here in the checkbox, here you can see that what attributes we have so far for our input checkbox, that type of this input, that is checkbox, and some class and an id. Okay, now we need to set the data attribute here. So data attributes are nothing but these are very helpful while working with Ajax. Data attributes gives us the ability to embed custom data attributes on all HTML elements. For example, if you need to send some parameters using Ajax to your Rails application by clicking on some link or some button, or changing the value of some select box or drop down, you might need some data that you need to send on the Rails application. And in that case, data attributes will be very helpful for you. So we will add a data attribute here. Okay, now let me tell you that why we need data attributes in our example. Because we are trying to delete books in bulk, but only selected ones. So we need to set the IDs of all the books selected by user, and we can simply get this using data attributes. So let's define the data attribute into the checkbox element for getting book ID. Okay, so what we can do here, we can simply add, and this is how you can define the data attributes into your DOM element. So data, okay, data will be the required key here, and then you can provide additional value name, that is, let's say, book ID. Okay, so this data attribute is for book ID. Okay, and here we can provide the value of the book ID. Okay, sorry, first add this. And now we can provide data book ID as the book ID. So just add in the Rails tag, and here you can pass book.id. Okay, and now if you want to check this working, so you can again switch to the browser and you can inspect the element here. And here you can see that we added the data attribute as a book ID for each table row. Okay, and here we completed the checkbox implementation. Now we need to add a button on the books index page that should be appear once you select at least one checkbox, and make sure this is hidden by default. For example, first come to the terminal, sorry, come to the Sublime directory. Okay, and here we need to add some button. So add a button here first. So we can simply use the HTML button tag. So button, type button, make sure it is type button, because by default, if you do not mention the type button, then it will be considered as the submit button. So it may lead some inconsistencies of the operation. So we need to make sure that this is of type button. And then we can add some class here, since we are creating this button for deleting the book. So we can provide some danger class here. So btn danger. Okay, and then we need to add an id to this button. So for example, let's say id delete books, delete books, and then we need to provide an style here. Okay, why style? Because by default this button should not be visible to user if user have not checked any books, or if user have not selected any book. Okay, for example, let me show you here that delete books. Okay, now if you refresh the browser, you can see that once you refresh the browser, this delete books button is appearing here. Okay, but this does not make sense. Why? Because user, as a user, I did not selected any checkbox, or I did not selected any book to be deleted. Okay, so what I need to do here, that I need to add some style here, that is display none. So display none. Okay, why? Because by default this button should be hidden from the user. Okay, and once the user select any checkbox, this button should appear. Okay, but we will do that using some jquery. Okay, so that's why I even if I select any checkbox here, the button will not appear. Okay, so this is the UI stuff that we must require here to perform the ajax to bulk delete books, and we implemented the UI. Okay, now it's time to get the hands dirty with jQuery. So first we need to add the jQuery into our project. So there are multiple ways to add the jQuery into our project. So first you can either use the import map to add the jQuery, or you can use some cdn, or you can download the jQuery and use the local file into your application, or you can store that local file into your rails application and use that as a javascript. Okay, so I will choose the simplest way, because my intention is to show only the way that how you can implement ajax request, or how you can work with ajax. So I will use the simplest way to use the jquery, that is I will use the cdn. Okay, so open the new browser tab, and in the new browser tab, what you can search for, jQuery CDN. Okay, so just add the jQuery CDN, or you can just copy the release document, and you can copy any of the thing like uncompressed, minified, slim, or anything. So I'm using the uncompressed jQuery version. Okay, so now switch to the application.html.erb, that is our layout file. Okay, and in the layout, what I will do, I will paste this jQuery CDN. Okay, that means after including the CDN, jQuery will work into my application. Okay, now save this layout file and open the application.js and write some jQuery there to display the delete book button using jQuery. Okay, so you can save the this layout file and switch to the JavaScript directory inside the app, and into the application.js. What we need to do, we need to do some jQuery stuff here. So first we can add, let's say, document. Okay, the document refers the page that you have opened in your browser. Okay, or document refers the entire web page that is open in your browser. Okay, so document.ready. Okay, so that means as soon as your document is ready, you can perform any operation within this block. Okay, so function. Okay, and then in this document the jQuery.function, what we need to do, first we need to add a counter variable here, because we need to count that how much checkbox has been selected so far. Okay, so what you can do here, var counter equal to, let's say, 0. Okay, because initially it must be 0. Okay, and now what we need to do, that we need to display the delete book button when we select at least one checkbox. Okay, so what we need to do here, you can select the dollar. Here the dollar represents the jQuery. Okay, and here then we need to provide the checkbox class here. Why? Because we need to display this button after clicking, after selecting a checkbox. Okay, so when checkbox is checked, or and we will increment the counter, and if counter is greater than 0, then we will display the delete books button. Okay, so here you can copy this class, that is book select check. Okay, and come to the application.js, sorry, yeah, in the application.js, and add a dot here. Okay, this dot book select class means that you are performing some event on a class element. Okay, and then we can call on and then click event. Okay, and then function. And now we will implement rest of the things here. Okay, and in this function, what we need to do, first we need to check that if currently selected checkboxes checked or its property is checked true, then we need to increment the counter and display the delete books button. So what you can do here, if dollar this, dollar this means we are referring the current element, or we are talking about the current element. So if I use this dollar this, that means since we have multiple checkboxes with this class, so if I am using dollar this, that means I am referring the currently selected checkbox element, whether it is selected or not selected. I'm just referring the current checkbox element. Okay, and then what I need to do here, because I need to check whether this check is checked, whether this checkbox is checked or not. So I can use this dot prop. Prop is for property, and then I just need to use checked. Okay, and now what I need to do, I need to increment the counter. Counter plus equal to 1. Okay, why? Because if one checkbox is selected, then I need to increment the counter by 1. Okay, and then what I need to do, because if a checkbox is selected, then I need to display the delete books button. Okay, so what I need to do, I need the selector of that delete book button, and what selector we added for this delete book button, here you can see that either we can use this button tag, and this button tag will apply on all the buttons exist into the application or into the page. So we will not use this button, even we will use this selector, that is id. So what our uh, id here is delete books. Okay, so now come to the application.js, and into this application.js we can provide the selector. So delete books dot css. Okay, why? Because we added the css here like display none. So now we will make its css to display block. Okay, display and then block. Okay, save this and add some semicolon here. Save this, and now go to the browser and refresh the page. Okay, so here you can see that this is my book cell. If I refresh the page, and when I click on any checkbox, you can see that delete books button is appearing now. So if I use this, here you can see that I selected two checkboxes and it is appearing. Okay, but if I unselect any of the checkbox, for example, let's say if at least one checkbox is selected, then this button should appear. If I unselect all the checkboxes, the button is still displaying here, and that should not happen. Why? Because this button should be visible only if you have at least one checkbox selected. Okay, then only you can perform the delete books operation. So now what we need to do, we need to come into the else part. Sorry. Okay, and in the else part, what we need to do, if checkbox is not selected, then we need to decrement the value of counter by 1. So counter minus equal to 1, and again here we need to check if counter is less or equal than 0, then only we need to hide this button. Okay, so what we can do here, we can use the same line, and we can again reset this button's css by display block to display none. Okay, and now if you come to the browser and refresh your page, we need to refresh the page each time because we are using jQuery here. So here you can see that I selected one checkbox. Okay, the button is appear here, and if I unselect this, then counter is again set to 0 and button is not appearing anymore. If I selected 2 3 checkboxes here, you can see that button is visible here. If I unselect one, the button is still here. Why? Because we still have two checkbox selected. If I unselect one more, the button is still here. Why? Because we have at least one checkbox selected, and if I unselect the last one, you can see that the button is disappear now. So our button selection is working here. And one more correction that I want to tell you, that here you can see what I used, that I used the css property here, and this is the way of jQuery to set the css to any element, and delete books is our button element, so we are setting its css using either display block or display none. Here you can use one more event, that is for example, if you comment this, you can simply use here dot show. Okay, that is the jQuery function to show or hide an element. So we can either use this show or this display block, and here in place of display none, we can use hide. Okay, hide. okay, and it will still work the same way. Okay, so here you can use what we used: delete books show, delete books hide, and save the file and refresh the browser. And once you refresh the browser and select any checkbox, you can see that button is still appears. He still appears, and if you unselect anyone, then button still appears until there is at least one checkbox selected. And if you unselect the last selected checkbox, the button will not appear anymore. That means this hide is working, or our jQuery code to display or hide the button is working fine. And it's all up to you whether you want to use the show or hide button, or use this css display none or display block button. Okay, it's all up to you. So the first part of deleting books has been done, that is, we finished the UI elements. Okay, that means we implemented the checkboxes, we implemented the delete button, and we implement the jQuery code to display or hide that button based upon how many checkbox has been selected by user. And if there is any checkbox which is not selected, then we are hiding the button. Okay, now is the next thing. What we need to do, we need to send the delete request to the rails controller using jQuery and ajax. So first we need to define a collection method into the books controller where we will send the ajax request. Okay, so let me open the books controller. In the books controller, you can see that right now I have only one action, that is index. And index action we are using to display the books into the database. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to implement another action here, that will be, let's say, def. And we can define the section as, let's say, bulk delete books. Bulk delete books. Okay, and we will define this method as empty method. Okay, and I just add a debugger here, because we will check that what is, whether the request is coming to our bulk delete books action or not, and if it is coming, then with what parameter it is coming here. Okay, so after defining this bulk delete books action into the controller, what we need to do as the next thing, that you need to define this as a collection method into your routes file as well. Okay, so just open the routes file. Okay, and into the routes file, what you need to do, resources, books, do, and into this resource we need to define collection action. So collection do, and here we need to define method. So we will define this method as delete verb. Why? Because we will use this action to delete the selected books in bulk. So we will define that http verb of this action as delete. And now bulk delete books. Okay, just copy this to make sure that we are writing the not making any typo mistake here, because this is the thing that I do most of the times. Okay, so just paste it here. Okay, so we have now the same action defined in the controller, and same route defined for that action into the routes.rb as well. Okay, now it's time to implement the ajax for deleting books when user clicks the delete button. And let's do this into application.js itself. Okay, so what we need to do here, open come to the application.js again. And here you need to define your ajax syntax, that is dollar. And since we need to send this ajax once user click the delete books button, so what we can do here, first add the selector for delete books. So delete books. Okay, and again remember that this delete books id refers to this button. Okay, and now in this application.js, what we need to do, dot on click. Okay, because we will send the request when user click on this button. Okay, and now function. Okay, and in this we need to define an empty array for storing book ids. These are the ids of the book that user selected to delete from the database. Okay, so first we need to define an empty array for book ids. Okay, why this empty array? Let me repeat it again. Because we will store all the IDs of the book that is selected by the user, and we are getting all the IDs of such books using the data book attribute ID that we added. Okay, now we need to get the data book IDs for the selected checkboxes. Okay, so what we can do here, we can just iterate through all the selected checkbooks. So, or all the checkbooks. So just add book select check dot each. Okay, this is the iterator in the jQuery. Okay, Okay, function, and then here. Now what you need to do here, you just need to check that whether a checkbox is selected or not. Okay, so if $this, and again by this I'm referring the current checkbox, okay, or I'm referring this for each individual checkbox element. Okay, prop checked, just make sure to be use this in quotes. And here what you need to do now, book IDs dot push. Okay, so here we need to push the data attribute or data book ID into the empty array that we define as the book IDs. Okay, so now what we need to do, $this dot data and then book ID. Okay, save this. Sorry, first close this. We don't want to purchase the Sublime. Okay, and now after this, after setting all the book IDs into the uh, all the selected checkbox book IDs into the book IDs array. Okay, what we need to do, for example, let's first check that whether we are getting these book IDs as valid or not. Book IDs. Okay, so just to save, write this alert and save this and come to the browser and refresh it. For example, now you can see that this has the ID 4 6 5 6. Okay, so just 4 5 6. Okay, and when you click the delete books, you can see that we are getting the IDs at 4 5 6. Okay, and if you select anything else, like, and click on the delete books, you can see that we are getting the IDs 4 5 6 8 9. Okay, and if you remove any of the selected checkbox, for example unselect the 4 and 5, and if you click on the delete books now, that means we are getting 6 8 9. Okay, and after implementing the AJAX, when we click on this delete books, that means we are sending a request to the books controllers bulk delete books action to delete books with these IDs. Okay, now it's time to send the ajax. Okay, so just come to the application.js again, and here we will implement our ajax request. So to implement the ajax request, it requires three minimum arguments that are URL, type, and data. URL is the external resource URL or a backend endpoint. There we want to send our request from the client side, I mean from our browser. And the type denotes the http verb of your application. It could be anything like get, post, put, patch, and delete. And the data is the param or set of params that we want to send with our request. Okay, so let's implement this. So how you can implement the ajax? So $.ajax. Okay, and into this syntax, first define the type URL. And URL is, for example, what we define into our routes, that bulk delete books. Okay, and it is inside the books resource. So what will be your URL? So it will be like books, and then bulk delete books. Okay, now as the next argument, what we need to do here, we need to define the type of this request. And what type we defined into our routes, that you can see that we defined this as a delete request. Okay, so we need to provide the type as delete. Okay, and now the data, that means the params that we want to send to our rails application. So here you can see what params we want to send. We want to send all the book IDs of selected table rows from the books table. Okay, so we can use, let's say, book IDs. This should be in the Ruby format, and now book IDs. Okay, that is the value we were passing from our front end. Okay, so now just to save this and refresh the page, and just send this request to the rails controller. Okay, so we already added the debugger there. So when you click on this delete books and come to the terminal, you can see that we are getting some error here, that is can't verify CSRF token authenticity, completed 422 unprocessable entity in application. Okay, and you can see the params here, that we are getting these book IDs 4 5 6. That means our ajax is working, and this is our main purpose, not this error. Okay, so now we need to we still need to fix this error. So just switch to the books controller. Okay, and just add a skip before uh, action filter here. So what we can use, skip before action, and then authenticity token, verify authenticity token. And if you send this request again, then you will never get this error. Okay, so just switch to the browser and just send it delete books, and you can see. Okay, sorry, first restart rail server and refresh the browser. Okay, and now send these requests again. For example, let's select this 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9, and when you click on the delete books, you will see that our debugger halted the execution of the request. And what params we are getting, you can see that in the params we are getting the book IDs 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and the controller is books, and the action is bulk delete books, and params are permitted false. That means our Ajax has worked nicely. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to implement our bulk delete books action to delete the books from the database in actually. Okay, so what we can do here, just to remove this debugger and respond to do, and here format. Okay, and then first, you can see that how we are getting our params, that we are getting params into the book IDs. That means we can fetch all the books that are matching with the book IDs that we are getting from the param. So first implement that. So at the red books equal to book dot where, and that means ID in params book IDs. And then let's use at the red books dot delete all. Okay, and then format.js. Okay, and why I'm using format.js, I will let you know later. Okay, now save this and refresh your browser. Okay, and we will need to send the request again. So just make some space on the terminal. Okay, and just switch to the browser and send first two books to the uh, for deleting. Okay, so now when you click on the delete books, you can see that request is coming to the terminal, and two books from the database has been deleted with ID 4 and 5. Okay, and when you refresh the browser, you will not see these books on the table anymore. So now what books we have into our database, that book with ID 6. So book with ID 6, that means we have ID 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, however, I just wanted to tell you that here I used the delete all. If you wish, you can use the destroy all as well. Okay, destroy all as well. So let's see what happen if you use destroy all. So just select any two book to delete. Okay, and when you click on the delete books, you can see the difference into the terminal, that what it is doing, that it destroy all instantiating each book item from the database first and then deleting them. Okay, and that is the difference between delete all and destroy all. Delete all is faster. Here you can see that it has deleted all the requested books into one query, and it has instantiated uh, the books from the database first and then deleted each book individually. Okay, that's why destroy all is always slower than delete all. And delete all skips all the callbacks or all the uh, for example, let's say validations associated with that operation or that object, but destroy all will consider them. That's why it reload each instance individually from the database and then delete that. Okay, so our destroy action is working. So now it's your choice that what you want to use, either delete all or destroy all, but I will go with the delete all here. Okay, because I don't want to make my query take more time, because right now we are just sending couple of data, sorry, couple of IDs. But suppose if it's hundreds of IDs that you want to delete, then it will take lot of time. Okay, so that's was our purpose. Okay, and we implemented it. Now come to the browser and refresh the page. Okay, so if you refresh the page, now you can see that we have only three books remain into our database. Okay, and that's what we wanted, and it's all from this lecture. In this lecture, I hope there is something new to learn for you guys. We get our hand dirty with jQuery stuff. What we did, that we implemented the checkbox, and we learned about the data attributes, and we saw how we can delete multiple books using Ajax. Okay, but this feature is not finished yet. You can see that to see the books after deleting selected ones, using Ajax, what I'm doing that I'm refreshing the browser, and this should not happen. After performing the Ajax, your page should be updated immediately, and we will do that part in the next lecture, where we will render some template using jQuery and update our books index page dynamically. Okay. Meanwhile, please try this lecture at your end, and we will meet into the next lecture. And if you have any query or any concern regarding this lecture, just let me know through the comment section. Till then, Tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe.